Hey everybody, it's Dana and welcome back. We are on day 4 of the Valentine's Day card series and we're going to be mixing and matching some of our products today. So I'm going to start off with the Hero Art Stripe Stencil. I really love these stripes on here, and I'm also going to be using the Hero Art Hot Foil Plate. I normally don't use these two things together, but we're going to give it a whirl today. I do have an older die. This is a love die. It's a love ornament from Hero Art. I don't see this on the website, but you can probably do this with any shape like this. And I'm also going to be using some foil. So I have a gorgeous red color here and a pewter color. So this is going to be our mix and match. And I am going to be using some different colors for Valentine's Day. I have a pitch black cardstock, and I think this is Arctic cardstock. I'll make sure to list other products below in case you guys want to give this card a try as well. So let's go ahead and get started. I am going to start off with the Arctic cardstock. And I want to make sure that the foil that I use, I'm not wasting this foil. This foil is so pretty, you guys, that I just don't want to waste any of it. So I am going to kind of measure out on my little mat here. I got this mat from Spellbinders, and this is going to assist me in cutting down my foil. Now, obviously you don't have to do this, but I just find that this mat is really handy when I want to cut down my foil. So the mat also has like a top cutting plate or like a grid, and you can just slice right through the grid lines on here to get a perfect piece of foil. But again, you don't have to do this. I just have this because I find sometime when I'm trying to cut my foil, I have a little bit of an issue with it, like rolling. But you can also cut this with a pair of scissors or even one of the roller blades that you would use for sewing. So as you can see here, I'm just lining up the red foil, and I can feel underneath how much of this foil I need. So I'm going to take my little blade, and this blade I also picked up on the Spellbinders website. I'm going to go ahead and just put like a little slice in the foil. Now I'm going to adjust that foil so I can feel the top and the bottom of the hot plate. And then I'm just going to put a little bit of a slice right in there. So this allows me to kind of measure out a little bit more precisely how much of this foil I'm going to need. Now I can go ahead and use those little bit of grit lines to trim down this foil. It just makes it a little bit easier, but again, you can use your scissors for this, or you can use one of the little wheelie things that you might use when you're sewing. This just made it a little bit more easier for me. Now I am going to just pull that down, line up the next little cut mark, go ahead and trim this down, and I'm going to do this for both of the foils. I'm going to do this for the red and the pewter foil. Now my machine is off to the side in my craft room. And the machine I'm using is my Glimmer hot foil machine. This is also from Spellbinders. And I will run the plate and these two foils through that machine. Now when I'm done, I have these gorgeous 2 card panels. I love both of these, but they are strikingly different. So this is going to give you a great difference in appearance on just using similar products. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and grab my sticky mat. I'm going to place that first panel in there, and I will line up my stencil over this. So this is really easy to do. You're just going to line up the stencil on top of your already hot foiled design. Now this is not going to mess up the hot foil at all. This is just going to allow us to have a little bit more texture. I am going to use my Versamark, and I'm going to tap in some of this Versamark through the lines of this stencil. Now I am using a larger foam brush for this, or foam pad, I guess these are called. Dauber, that's it. And I'm gently just pushing this through. I don't want to rub this on because the lines of the stencil could shift. So this is just my little tip. If you're going to be doing this, just make sure that you dab that through the stencil. Do not rub. This is going to give me such a unique design on top of that hot foil plate. So go ahead and pull up the stencil. And right now it just looks like a watermark. But look at the dimension I'm getting on this card by mixing, matching those two elements, the hot foil plate and the stencil. Now, I don't want to add any color to this, so I'm not going to use white embossing powder this time. To make these lines kind of stand out, but don't give me a contrast of color, I'm going to use clear embossing powder for this. Now, if you wanted to, you could heat set this and it would just have those lines fade back like a watermark, but I wanted them to have a little bit of shine to them. So I went ahead and I poured on some clear embossing powder, and this is clear embossing powder from Hero Arts, and I'm just going to go ahead and tap that over the card, making sure to cover up all of those lines. I will go ahead and flick off any excess, and now I can start heat setting this. My biggest tip here, if you're going to do this, is to keep that gun moving. I don't think it would do anything like warp or discolor the foil, but I just found that if I keep this gun moving, one, I get a nice even look across the card, and I don't have any scorch marks per se. That's where I held my gun, my heat gun, a little bit too long. So I'll just go ahead and finish that up. And now when I lift this up and show you, you're going to see just that faint bit of texture to the back of this. Look how pretty that is. It just gives this a little bit more of a dimension on the card. Now I'm going to go ahead and set this one aside, and I'm going to do the blue and red card. I just really like how striking this looks. So I'm going to show you one more time how to do this. I have my sticky mat. I have it inside the corner of my Misty. I'll go ahead and lay down my paper. Now this way, this time I'm going to switch the direction of the lines. And that's what's so good about using a stencil. Because this design is very simple, it's just the lines, I can go vertically, horizontally, or if I wanted to, I can go diagonally across this. If you guys give this a try, I would love to see anyone who wants to do it diagonally, because I'm very interested to see what that would look like. I'm doing the same exact process. I'm just pressing down this Versamark through that stencil. Again, I am not rubbing. Now I can peel off the stencil. And again, you can see that faint little watermark, which actually looks very pretty with this. But instead of using the clear this time, I decided I want to add something that has a little bit of color, but it's softer. So I'm going to use white pearl embossing powder for this. This is going to give me a hint, and I mean like a hint of white, but going to have this really pretty pearl effect instead. So as you can see, I'm very heavy-handed with this. I make sure that I get that on all the lines. I can go ahead and flip this over and tap off any excess and grab all of that excess and put it back into my jar. Again, when I heat set this, I'm being careful to move my gun around, and I'm not staying in any area long. Now I want to show you this. As I am doing this, the parts that go over each one of the hearts is actually changing up the color of the heart. I didn't realize this would happen. I don't know why I didn't have it in my brain. But as I am drying this back and melting it, I can see where the white is overlapping. That pearl white is actually giving me a new color, which I think is kind of intriguing. So now like I want to do this for like all the foil stuff, just to see how it changes the effect of my card. So once that's dried, I'm going to show you. So can you see that some of the hearts where that line overlapped is like a lighter pink? It's so pretty. So I have a little bit more definition on this card than what I thought I was going to get. Magic, you guys. I love this stuff. Now I'm going to come in with that Circle Love die. Now, if you had a word die that just didn't cut the outer parts, just cut the inner parts, you can do this the same way. Now, if you can't find something like this, my suggestion would be first to maybe die cut the love and leave the ends attached, and then do a circle die. Line everything up, and it should, my keyword is should, line up correctly. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and run this through my die cut machine. And when I come back, I'm going to add a little bit of gray to this. I didn't want to add any white. So in order to keep this color combination a little bit different than your typical Valentine's Day card, I did decide to bring in the gray. Now this gray is Fog Cardstock from Simon Says Stamp, and I think it works perfectly with this teal and red. For a little bit of added dimension on that love, I did die cut this a few more times in that fog, and I placed the colorful piece on top. This is going to give this element just a tad bit of dimension on my card. See, just a little bit. It's not a lot. Now, I do like this gray, but I didn't know if I wanted it to have that wide of a side on each side. So I'm going to go ahead and shift this over just a little bit, and I'm going to trim off the excess. Now I can go ahead and start building up this card. Now, as you can see, this card is lighter in color, obviously, and it has a softer feel. The next card we're going to be working on is going to be such a striking card. Now, I did enjoy doing both of these cards, but I don't know what it is about the second card when we put it together. It just gives me all the feels. I went ahead and I placed that down, and now I'm going to go ahead and add back in my centerpiece. I do have a lot of gray areas left open, and we're going to fill those up after I get this piece down. So once I finish adding my glue, I can go ahead and flip this over and place it right back in the circle. Now, because that love has a little bit of dimension, it's going to give me an opportunity to place something in the middle. Now remember, you don't have to do the dimension on this. I just like to have my sentiment or my dies like this have just a tad bit of dimension, that it's just raised off a little bit from the rest of the card panel. Now to fill in those gray areas, like I said, I'm going to add some of these colorful hearts from Concord and Ninth. These are their enamel hearts, and they actually work perfectly with the color scheme that we have going on today. I'm just going to add a few in the center. I'm really going to pull in that teal and that red. Now, if you guys have watched my card series before, I think every year I've done a card series, I've had this color combination because it is one of my favorites, and I also use it in my holiday card series. So look how pretty that is. Now, if you guys are not familiar with my channel, I love to make cards and I love to do card series. So I'll link to my holiday card series as well as my Valentine's Day card series in case you guys want to check it out. Now I am just going to place this onto a white card base. I think that frames out the gray and the teal and red beautifully. Now if you wanted to, you could have left this panel a little bit bigger and just took the color edge to edge. Now to pull in some of that white onto this card panel, I'm just going to grab a few more of those enamel hearts just so I have the color throughout. Anytime I'm putting something down, I sometimes want to make sure I carry that white up onto my card panel. Now again, I just placed a few of these, and look how gorgeous this card is. Now you guys ready for the striking one? This one, you guys, might be my favorite for today. All right, so I'm going to come back in and look how gorgeous that pewter is. Now, I did cut the circle out of this gray, but remember, if you have a panel that's going to cover up that circle, use that panel. Do not get rid of it. So as you can see, this black panel is going to hide the circle that I cut into that fog cardstock, and nobody's going to know. So line that up. Now, this fog works beautifully with this pewter. Oh, I just absolutely love it. I want to make this card really, really striking. So I'm going to come in with a back piece of that same pitch black cardstock. Look how I'm building up the dramaticness of this card. Did I say dramaticness? I think I did. Because it's something so striking. I just love this card. All right, so I went ahead and added some glue to that, and then I'm going to go ahead and place this down. Now again, this is a totally different color palette for me for Valentine's Day, but I absolutely love it. But there's no red and there is no pink. It is just this gorgeous gray, pewter, and black card. stunning. Now we're going to go back and we're going to grab that love again. Now I did die cut this out in black as well, and I wanted to see if I wanted the black on top, but it totally gets lost. So once again, I'm going to stack these up because I want a little bit of dimension in my card, and I'm going to top it off with the fog cardstock. That gray is really going to play up on this background. Now, when I did put this together, I did add that gray piece on top, but I shifted it just a little bit so you can see a little bit of that black underneath. I think that also helps give this a little bit more of a dimensional look. Now, once I have this down, I'm going to flip this over and adhere this to the front of my card panel. I can add the last of that glue, and then I'll go ahead and place this down. Now this card is so striking to me that I don't want to add anything else to it. I don't need any enamel dots on this. I just feel this right here just speaks for itself. Now if you wanted to, you could add a sub-sentiment, but I'm trying to make really easy cards that I can mass produce for Valentine's Day. And I think this one might be one of them. Now, I am going to add this to a white card base, but I don't want the white card base to show, so I made sure that this was trimmed down where that black panel is going to cover up the white cardstock. And the reason I'm doing that is because there's no white element on this card. I'm not going to add any white hearts. I just want this color palette to show. So in order to get this lined up, I am going to bring in my MISTI so I can place my white card panel into the corner of my MISTI, and then I'll be able to line this up. Now that's just a great little tip. If you need to line up your card panel because it's the same size as your card base, just tuck it into the corner of your MISTI or tuck it into the corner of your scoreboard, and you'll be able to get everything lined up. And I also like to use a wet medium because I can push and move that cardstock until I get it totally covered. Now look how gorgeous this is. Oh, so pretty. I wanted to add a different element to this one than I did my last card. So I'm going to grab some of my clear Nuvo glaze, and I'm just going to line the top of this. This is just going to give my piece a little bit more of a dimensional look once that glaze dries. I can go ahead and finish that up. And I don't know if you're going to be able to see it on camera, but I have a nice glaze to the top. All right, that is going to be our mix and match cards for today with two very different looks. All right, everybody, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I will see you in another video soon. Take care and be safe. Bye-bye.